Hello, this is Minesweeper, an autistic virtual YouTuber from Malaysia. So for today, instead of streaming a Japanese freeware game, I'm going to have some afterthoughts regarding GC Koushien 2021. For those who don't know what it is, GC Koushien, or in full, Game Creators Koushien 2021 is a Japanese student game development competition where all the developers for a game must be by students, but the competition also accepts other categories such as project papers, graphics, and sound. So anyways, congratulations to Luminola Ruta Natural for winning the grand prize. So before I proceed, allow me to introduce myself. So what is happening here? I couldn't get the slides. Whoopsie. The shortcut didn't got saved. Okay, so my name is Minesweeper, a VTuber from Malaysia who primarily streams Japanese freeware games, and I have started streaming since 1st January of 2021. So during November, I have participated in GC Koushien 2021's streamers contest, in which I have done 92 games, but unfortunately the prize went to Forex Chicken, another VTuber. Well, congratulations to him. So now let's proceed with what I'm going to talk about. So there are three things. First, I'm going to talk about what I think about this event, followed by suggestions to organizing committee, and finally advice to student developers. So first of all, let's talk about my thoughts regarding this event. Then the quality of the games, well, this is a student game dev competition, so obviously there will be the quality of the games will definitely be vary, and some of them are good, some of them are basically unplayable, and unfortunately I did stream like 2 games which are unplayable, which is sucks. They are not Diamond Text, Twist Suites and Desert. Those who have seen the archives will know my frustration on those 2 games. And there are some really well made games, such as the winning entry Luminola Ruta Natural, and also the runners up Korodama Monogatari. And I also streamed that game in 3rd place, Graveria, and it's quite interesting because I don't find that game to be particularly any good on all aspects, but it's certainly a serviceable game, so getting the third place is kind of surprising. But I can see why, because the game certainly has its own creative points. Then I think I'm going to talk further down the road when it comes to quality of the games a bit later. And let's get through the scheduling and game selection. So I'm gonna show you this schedule. So it seems rather small on the screen, so I'm going to do a larger zoom. And let's see if this works. Okay, it looks better. So when it comes to the titles that I chose to stream, I mean, first, any Japanese titles must be translated to English, and my approach is to use the original title if possible. If not, then I will try to, instead of a straight up translation, I would go for translation that would make sense to an English speaker. But sometimes it's just impossible. I just straight up romanize the thing, like, yep, such as this. So if I straight up translate the original Japanese title for this game, it would be a pair is Slime Brothers, which definitely doesn't make sense to an English speaker, so I switched to the Slime Brother pairs. So there's another one which is, whoops, yep. So this, if normally translated to English, that would be not enough 3 people, but again, this doesn't make sense to an English speaker, so I change it to need 3 people, since that the story is about needing 3 people to complete the ranger group. Then I personally prefer playing action games and puzzle games, but I try to diversify, so hence the inclusion of the likes of Hype Man, and then there's visual novels like Need 3 People, Let's Make an Evil Commercial, and where is the last one? Yep, Your Finisher Magic. So there's a lot of titles. Yeah, the majority of the titles played are action games and puzzle games, since that also represents the bulk of the playable. And by the way, I do make a separate, by the way, this is not open to public, this is just for personal analysis. So this is a list of the games that maybe I should nope. I can't zoom. I think I can't zoom in this one, so there are a lot of so a total of 242 games which is playable by downloads. which, so let's see if I can zoom this in. Okay, sure. Yep. So I have streamed 38 action games and 24 puzzle games. That's 62 out of 92 game streams. That's about 2/3 of the games that I have streams. But overall, the only games that I don't stream, the only genres of the games that I avoid are digital board games and survival horror, because I'm not interested in both. So, and overall the representation bias is kind of high, more than 30%. So, and one glare, so since that I stream a lot of action games and puzzle games, they are definitely overrepresented in the games that I have streamed, whereas there's mini games, yeah, adventure games do suffer from underrepresentation, and to a lesser extent fighting games and mini games. By the way, my definition of fighting games isn't just required games which you fight against each other, but any kind of one-to-one competitive game where you actually have to attack the enemy. Because if I go for a stricter definition, there will be only 2 games instead of 10. So, and also the issue with mini games is that they don't really appeal to audiences, not just English speaking audiences but also Japanese audiences as well. So I'm not really that interested. Simulation games, not as bad but still underrepresented, partially because I suck at those games. But even when you remove the genres that I chose to exclude, it's still quite significant, with puzzle games being the most overrepresented genre, whereas the most underrepresented genre is adventure games. And I'm not but I don't think I will try to fix this issue in next year if I happen to enter the next year's streamers contest, because I prefer to stream what I like. But at least I will still try to stream as much genres as I can to provide a balanced view of the games that is showcased on the competition. And if you want to watch the archives, live stream archives, the playlist is on my channel. It's called GCK2021 English live stream. But keep in mind that Roboros requires you to sign in, because I did some really yabe stuff with the character. So now let's get back to the slides. So for some games I definitely have some rather negative opinions. First of all, Quarter Island, and it's really frustrating that the game is designed for local multiplayer, which is sort of understandable since that setting up an actual server for online multiplayer isn't exactly feasible for student game dev unless the game, but still there are some games. There is a game with excellent online multiplayer that is Shogi, but that game, well, I'm not quite sure if it's ethical or integrity concerns with the game, but I don't want to say too much, and I don't think this is the right place to talk about that issue, and I certainly don't want the developer to get pissed off and come and do something bad with this stream. So I'm gonna skip that part. So Water Island, the issue is that I don't know about Japan, but local multiplayer isn't exactly a popular thing around the world. A lot of people just prefer to play online. It's kind of understandable, as I previously said, but I hope that if this game gets an update, then maybe you could scale the boss to have deal less damage when you have less players. So that's a complaint I have with the game. Then next up is Spool of Reflex. The game doesn't have an ending. So when I streamed the game, I was like, wait, what happens after he wrote the love letter? And the whole thing become left hanging, I would say. Then next up is Make Android is Top Gear. I expect a longer game, since that another game by, I think it's not the same dev team, but they attend the same school if the initial logo is to believe. I expect something like 2 or 3 stages, but at least props to the development team to at least justify why the game is short. But other aspects of the game are definitely good enough. It's just that the game is way too short. It's only 1 stage, just I think a few screens and a boss fight, and that's it. But that issue aside, that game is actually quite above average in most aspects, especially the gameplay and the character designs. And then next up is Hype Man, and while there are some issues with triggering the key moments to proceed the game further, that's definitely an issue, but at least that is tolerable. What isn't is that a certain game over scene near the end of the game, where if you get detected, a certain monster will come out and rush towards the player. The problem is, due to the way the game over screen is triggered, the game over monster is supposed to run towards the player and attack the player, and before the game over is triggered and the game is automatically physically revert to a checkpoint, but if the monster cannot physically reach the player, then the scene will keep on going and the game is stuck. And this bug is a problem and it needs to be fixed. But otherwise, interesting concept. And the 3D models are serviceable, kind of reminded me of those late 90s and early 2000s video games. Then debris collect, score attack games. The problem with this game in comparison with other score attack games is that while other score attack games, they are designed to be mini game like, but debris collect in terms of aesthetics and the music, they are putting way more effort than what is normally the case for those score attack games. So I feel like it's a bit of wasted effort, I would say, but still it's still the best score attack game among those games that I have streams. It's just that the level of effort that they do would be better if they make other games, but I guess this is just nitpicking on my side. And then Suite. Previously I have mentioned that Desert and Suite are unplayable, while Desert is tolerable in the sense that the game has bugs which maybe went undetected. Suite has an issue with the keyboard binding where the A and B, apparently the A and B button of the on the Xbox 360 controller is mapped to the space key. Essentially that means you are binding two keys with which are incompatible into the same key, and this is a more serious issue than, you know, character disappeared after game over, and it's really frustrating. So, and speaking of that, a lot of games require the use of Xbox 360 controller, which might not be an issue in Japan, but it will be an issue if the game gets sold internationally, for reasons that I'm going to tell near end of this stream. So the last one would be Minesweeper 3D. The game is perfect on its own otherwise, but the rotational angle is restricted, which doesn't make sense because Alice Cube doesn't have this issue, and that is not that good, and it doesn't make sense. And also Alice Cube is a much simpler game than Minesweeper 3D, at least in terms of the scope of the game, but in terms of execution, Alice Cube is actually has a depth of its own. So, and the developer has announced that a mobile port will be done, so I actually mentioned to I think I did it by a quote tweet, say please don't restrict the rotation if you make the mobile port. So far, no objections from the developer so far. And that's it for some negative remarks that I have on certain games that I have streams. Now let's move over to the positive remarks. So first of all, I'm going to talk about those who know the Sinners. That's the game's English title. So I am impressed by what they have. It is a demo, but I'm impressed with what they have shown so far. With different button combinations, you can perform different kind of moves, giving a lot of combo options. And I would say that if this game gets rollback netcode and English translation when the game is released, have a full release, I would say this game will get fighting game community's attention. It has the potential to go big. And then on to the next game, that would be Love Connect. I really dig the character designs of that game, and the girls featured in that game are very attractive. I would consider them, yeah, waifus. But then again, when the premise of your game is catching waifus dropping from the sky, if you mess that up, your game is done. And if such a game is released on Steam, I expect to be getting a lot of angry negative reviews. So next up is Forex Chicken. It's one of the very few games that has a working English translation, and the only game that has full English translation. So special thanks to the developer team to include one. And then this next up is Destroy Runner. So it's very rare to have a time trial based FPS, and I find it to be an interesting concept. It breaks the mold that of FPS games has to be just shooting other people, whereas Destroy Runner is a obstacle course, which is definitely interesting. And next up would be Brave Diaz, White Hero and the Dark Demon King. It's a very short demo, and there's only one enemy, but I am impressed by the sheer level of detail that the developer team has put in this game. To put it simply, the sound of the movement steps will change depending on what is the ground that you are stepping on. And this is a level of detail that a lot of games lack. Then next up would be Color Chrome. So Color Chrome reminded me a lot of Eternal Radiance, which is an action RPG with a similar art structure, more or less a hybrid with visual novel. And in some aspects, I would say that it's better than Eternal Radiance. Like the combat system is a lot simplified, and it's fully voiced. I would say that those people in the development team who voices those characters have the potential to become anime voice actors in the future. And then the last one would be Your Finisher Magic. I really dig the cute character designs in the game, and they are very, very adorable. I would say that I don't know if my niece wants to play that game. That's fine with me. I don't think if she asks me which game that I will let her play, this will be the one. So next up, this is just a list that, yeah, speaking of this, a lot of these games, they are more or less ready for release on Steam. I firmly believe that a lot of these game devs have plans to sell their game in the future maybe. So this is just a list of games that I think would reasonably sell on Steam if they chose to do so. Then this list is similar to the previous one, except that on the previous one they can just straight up sell the game, whereas the ones in this list requires further development before they can sell them in full. Of note, Innocent Reaper and Tenshu Kaku are actually more or less complete, but due to their short length, if they really want to actually sell the game in Steam, they have to make additional levels. Next up, okay, then there are 3 games are already available on Steam if you want to try them out. That would be Relash, Shoshogi, and Magnet Action Z. But by the way, Relash only exists as a demo, a 6-stage demo if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if when the game will get a full release. I don't know if I will be able to buy the game though, considering I'm currently unemployed and still seeking jobs. So next up, these are the games that already released as freeware games on Free. But only the last 3 are the ones that I have streamed during the streamers contest, while the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the first 9 titles from the left have been streamed on my channel before, and I have plans to stream Blind Ball Gimmicks A to Z next month. Yeah, by Rufaru, which I translate the name into Rufaru the Seller, that was streamed back in September. And if you want to grab those games now, you can visit Frame, which is a Japanese free game repository, and play them on your PC. But keep in mind that the last 3 games on this list are browser games, so you can only play them over your browser with an active internet connection. So keep that in mind. Now, so this is my opinion regarding what is the best game by what they are being really good at. So overall, Cross Relief is above average on all aspects, but there's one game that does it better than Cross Relief, so that's why I only give Cross Relief the best game overall, and keep in mind that this only covers the games that I have streamed. Then next up will be music. So regarding that, those who know the battle music of those who know the Sinners is immersive, not just in terms of the environment, but also on the player's action within the game. This is very hard because most of the time when there's music in the game, they only reflect the environment inside the game rather than the environment and the action. For the action, it tends to be relegated to sound effects instead, but the music used in the battle music of those who know the Sinners are immersive both in terms of environment and action. I have to give props to the dev team to make that work. And in terms of potential, Project Mana definitely has the most potential compared to other demo games that I have made, and I expect a grand Metroidvania coming out from the dev team. It seems that the game is currently in active development. Then next up would be environment. I think Lumino La Ruta Natural has the best environment, in a sense that it's very beautiful, but Korodama Monogatari is definitely not too shabby on that regard. So next up will be the gameplay. I would say Korodama Monogatari has the best gameplay compared to Lumino La Ruta Natural, because I like the creative approach where how you manipulate the ball. But of course, Lumino La Ruta Natural isn't too shabby on that regard. They are more or less just neck to neck when it comes to the comparison. Next up will be voice acting. Color Chrome definitely takes this one. It's one of the only fully voiced game that I have streamed, but it's not like other games don't have voice acting. May Android is Top Gear, and Let's Go to the Wood Farm do have partial voice acting, but they are not exactly that good compared to Color Chrome. And as I previously mentioned, I would say that the voice actors for Color Chrome have the potential to become anime voice actors. So then next up, the best game in terms of reasonable difficulty would be Colossus. So the levels in the Colossus are kind of challenging, but you never feel that it's impossible. When it comes to difficulties, if the game has only one difficulty, you need to do it so that it doesn't feel effortless, but you don't want to frustrate players by making it hard that progress is impossible. And on that regard, Colossus is the best when it comes to balancing these two things. Next up would be character design. definitely the best character design among the games that I have streamed would be Love Connect, as I previously mentioned before, due to the premise of the game, which is catching waifus falling from the sky. They definitely have an incentive to make the characters really attractive, and also the playable character is himself is quite handsome as well. Then the last one will be level design, which I give it to Electronic. I like the creative ways how the levels are set up, and the game does force me to actually pause and think. And in case of Lumino Laruta Natural and Korodama Monogatari, there will be times like I'm going to just brute force. That doesn't happen with Electronic. So that's it for the best games now. So next up, I'm going to give some. So I'm going to continue with scheduling and game selection, which I have briefly touched early. So I must admit that for some of the games, during the initial game selection, I do not read the game introduction PDF, which caused problems when I try to stream Brave Diaz. But at least that game is an impressive demo with the amount of level with an incredibly detailed sound effect where the sounds of movement depends on the terrain where the playable character is moving on. So after getting burned, for subsequent games I do pay attention to the game introduction PDF to temper my expectations. And also, yeah, I do want to cover as much games as possible, partially because if I only covered a small set of games, it won't do the event justice. And also that is part of my strategy to increase my chances of winning the streamers contest. But considering that during the Korodama Monogatari live stream there was a work call, which means I have to mute the mic, and then after I finished with the call I forgot to unmute my mic, which is worthy of a live stream fail entry over Reddit. Yeah, it's kind of sucks. Then selection factors. Regarding that, I prefer action and puzzle games, but when I reached about the last 2 weeks of the month of November, I have to compromise with games of short length will be given precedence priority because I want to be able to cover as much games as possible. So if a game can be finished quickly, then I can quickly move on to the next game. That's why you get games like Tuning Fork Girl Onsa, which I would normally not cover, but due to that issue I have to do it. And there's also some disruption. If you have seen the tweet somewhere around mid this November, there was due to a change into laundry schedule, I have to adjust my streaming schedule around that, because if I have laundry to be done, then the stream has to be start late to account for that. So I'm sorry that this sort of thing has happened. So let's move on to my suggestions to organizing committee. So first of all, the committee needs to streamline or split the streamers contest and main contest. And one of the issues is that, so I'm going to show you this. So the current approach is that during the main contest entry, during the streamers contest, new games can still be submitted to the competition. So there's an influx of the games that is available to stream, and the number of the games that I plan to stream has increased. So I was like, during times when I'm not streaming, I have to dedicate quite a lot of time to research about the games that has been newly added to the competition, and it becomes a lot of additional work to be done, which gives off a rather negative impression to me. And to fix that, there are two approaches that the organizing committee can do. So the first approach is that when the game has stopped accepting entries, the streamer contest starts. So essentially you are separating the main contest period with the streamers contest periods. The advantage of this approach is that the streamers would have a full set of games to be streamed when they do planning, and there's less interruption when new games are added. Since that there's no new games, they can just plan it in one go, and maybe also allows the streamers to give equal chance for the voting. But apparently regarding voting, the actual voting period is after the streamers contest this has ended, and that's acceptable for me. Another approach is that you do the streamers contest on the same period as the main contest, and this is the approach used by Smoking Wolf when he's hosting Wodicon. In Japanese that will be Wodicon, a game competition which is focused on games made using Wolf RPG editor. The advantage of this approach is that the streamers, they can just stream the games for the whole period, and so they have better flexibility in terms of when to stream, what titles to stream and what not. But the disadvantage would be the stream, at least from a streamer's perspective, that will be they have to constantly schedule new streams instead of having streams scheduled in advance before they start doing so. So it's up to the organizer whether to accept this idea. So now next up will be set up streaming permissions when the contest starts. So I wasn't made aware that I am allowed to stream the games featured in the competition, and I have asked Niwari Senpai regarding this matter, and he made me know that I had to ask permissions from the developers individually, which is a very big hassle, and not everyone has the time and resources to ask permissions one by one, especially if the likes like me plans to stream a lot. So maybe the organizing committee can just straight up say, okay, except for a few titles where the devs have applied to say, okay, please don't stream these games, the rest of the games you can stream freely during the contest period, and it can be done independently of the streamers contest, because some streamers, maybe they look at the game and maybe got interested to come live stream the game, then they can do it straight away if the organizing committee has made this fact known earlier on. So another suggestion, I would say, add an award for most localization friendly game title. Okay, regarding this, in fact, the fact that I have streamed 92 games from the competition shows that GC Koushien isn't just being watched upon by Japanese audiences, it's people all around the world are watching. And I actually asked a few online friends whether they are aware of this. A few of them do monitor this contest closely, and at the same time I also spread the word regarding GC Koushien through Discord most of the time, and I think my own live streams of those games also gives awareness to English-speaking audiences regarding the existence of this event competition. But it seems like the organizing committee themselves doesn't realize this. So, and also apparently, based on my own observation, some game developers, they are well aware that foreigners are playing their games, and I would say that why not capitalize on this potential instead of the game just start in Japan? Why don't make the game available worldwide for everyone to play? So on that regard, maybe the organizing committee can reach out to those game publishers which specializes on bringing those smaller Japanese games to English-speaking audience, such as Playism, Dejika, Fruitbat Factory, Rockin' Android, and more. If they can rope in, say, Exit games or Axis games, that's even better. I don't know if this works, but if this makes global audiences more aware of the events, it's better. Then the last suggestion that I want to give to the organizing committee is that at an award for most accessible game title. In recent years, in English-speaking game dev circles, accessibility is being improved upon, and as an autistic person myself, I would definitely benefit from accessibility options, which, to be honest, tend to be lacking in games made in Japan for unknown reasons. Games are made to be inclusive, so it's kind of a wasted opportunity if gamers with disabilities is unable to play a game because the lack of accessibility options. And it would be benefit for both gamers and game developers alike if accessible options are added in the games. And I would say that none of the games that I have streamed can be said to be accessible. So maybe the organizing committee can reach out to disability advocacy groups in Japan to have such an award. That's just my 2 cents. So that's it for my suggestions to organizing committee. Then the last part would be my advice to student developers. So first of all, and the most important one at that would be, please conduct place testing to find bugs before you submit the game or even release the game, because some of the games have some really glaring bugs that I was surprised at, and some of the bugs that I have encountered happens in games that is being made available much earlier on during the contest entry period, because the entry actually starts around, if I remember the schedule correctly, is somewhere around May to July. I'm not quite sure the exact start of the entry period. So, and this playtesting process needs to be continued after you release the game to find maybe bugs that you have previously missed, because bugs with games will reduce the impressions of gamers have with your game. As a developer myself, I learned this the hard way, so I hope that other developers won't suffer from the same issue as mine. My next advice would be globally minded as the world is watching. So, as I said in the previous section, it's the GC Koushien 2021 isn't just being observed by Japanese people. It's been watched upon by everyone around the world. But keep in mind that you don't have to be sacrificing the aesthetics for that to happen. Instead, what needs to be paid attention upon would be cultural and gameplay sensitivities. So one example is the swastika pattern level that I encountered when I was playing Planet. Yes, I am well aware that that symbol is very common in Buddhist temples, not just in Japan, but most parts of East Asia and Southeast Asia. So it's understandable that such signs would be just seen as a normal thing. But if someone from the Europe or US see this, it's going to cause a shitstorm, because that symbol is associated with Nazism, especially in those regions. So that's something that you really have to be careful when developing a game. And don't just observe gaming sensitivities in Anglophone countries. Of course, that's going to main focus, but there's also sensibilities from, say, the Spanish-speaking region, the Chinese-speaking region. Yeah, those regions are quite huge as well when it comes to gaming. And it will benefit you if you try to look at the gaming scene in those countries as well. At least provides you to a different perspective of how things are done in comparison of how it was done domestically, and you sure would be able to learn a thing or two from them. And speaking of learning, that leads to the third point, is learn not just from mainstream and indie gaming, but also doujin soft and free games as well. So I'm going to be blunt here. Some of the games that I have streamed is worse than freeware games of equivalent premise. And I would say that some of the freeware games would be stealing the spotlight if they are eligible to the contest, such as Ginju of Giden, which won the 13th Worldcon, Titan Dungeon RTA, which won the 2nd Sinjin Fury Game Contest, and also Day Zero, which won the 12th Worldcon. Those are just some of the games that I find really good. So you need to, aspiring student developers need to look at those games as well. And the last one that pertains more to the GCK Koushien itself is, if you are uploading the game, which is a link to a Google Drive, please make the link accessible to the public. There are several games that I wanted to stream, but when I try to click the game download button on the GCK website, it leads to an error where I have to request access to the game. So I didn't do that because there's no way I'm going to use DeepL translated Japanese to request access. It's going to get denied. And if I write in English, they are likely not understand. So there was one time where I made an official complaint to the organizing committee. When this thing happens, only 4 games have fixed that issue. So it's kind of disappointing that this sort of thing can happen, considering that GC Koushien is organized by a big company, and not just some ordinary big company, it's called Dansha. So I was like, what the heck? So I hope that this kind of thing won't happen next year. So overall, I would say that this event definitely is a big success, considering that it attracts quite a lot of viewership than what I initially expected during the awards ceremony. And the buzz on Twitter, sure, it didn't make it to the trends, but there's still a lot of tweets talking about the event, and I appreciate the fact that I got an invitation to the awards ceremony venue, and I got to briefly talk to the development team of Luminola Ruta Natural, even though they don't speak English and I can't speak Japanese well. So I'm definitely looking forward to stream the games featured in next year's event, but I don't think I can pull off that incredible run of 92 games anymore, unless, say, I manage to make it big on YouTube that I don't need to work anymore, but I don't think that will be the case. So it seems that no one is watching live. I'll leave the archive up just in case that anyone who is from GCK Koushien 2021, be it the organizing committee or the developers themselves, come and watch the archives. I definitely welcome all the feedback regarding this live stream. So I think that's it for today's live stream. Tomorrow I'm going to play Ryurira in Lost Castle on 8 PM UTC plus 8, that's 9 PM Japan time. I do plan to play this game much earlier, if not for the fact that I have to finish Big Boy first, but now that I put Seiri-chan in the back burner for now, I finally get to stream this game. It's an interesting action game, and yeah, one of the well-received titles in the 13th WorldCon. I'm happy that I finally get to stream this game. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.